Qualitative Reading Inventory, also called the QRI, is an informal assessment given to readers. In this course, you will learn why we give it and how to give it. You will practice scoring it and analyzing the data. Then in your field experience, you will give the QRI to several students. The QRI consists of two assessments, word lists and passages. There are two types of passages, narrative and expository. They have different purposes, which will be explained later. The assessments yield information about the student's strengths and areas for growth. Word lists. The first assessment is word lists. Result of the word list assessment gives information about which words are sight words for the student, what decoding skills the student employs to figure out the words they don't know with automaticity, and their behaviors when they encounter a word they don't know and can't decode. The word lists range in difficulty from the pre-primer level, one-syllable words that are easily decodable or considered sight words, to high school, multi-syllabic content words that appear in textbooks or literature. The word lists assess words in isolation. The student cannot use context clues or pictures to figure out the word. There are two types of passages, narrative and expository. Narrative passages are fiction or biographical short stories. Expository passages are nonfiction, fact-based informational passages. Some readers find expository passages to be more difficult to read and comprehend because of the Tier 2 and Tier 3 words. The passages range in difficulty from pre-primer to high school, just like the word lists. Each passage contains some of the words from the word list at the same level. This enables the examiner to compare miscues between words in isolation and the same words in context. It helps to determine how well the student uses information in the passage and pictures to help them figure out the word. You are encouraged to spend time getting familiar with the QRI manual before administering the QRI. Read the introductory pages, read how to administer the word lists and the passages. Look at the word lists and observe how the words get progressively more complex. Look at the narrative passages. Observe how they move from short, single sentences on a page with a picture that matches the text to stories with multiple paragraphs with no pictures. Look at the expository passages. Observe how they may have content familiar to some students but not to other students. Observe the Tier 2 and Tier 3 words that become more abundant as the levels increase. Observe that some passages have text supports, diagrams, photos, or maps, while others may be only text. This presentation will include video clips of two students being given the QRI. Both students are reading above their grade levels. The female student is in the spring of her second grade year. The male student is in the spring of his third grade year. The clips will demonstrate methods for introducing the assessments and giving the assessments. Seeing real students taking the QRI helps you to visualize what it'll be like when you give the assessment. There will be some video clips near the end of the presentation to provide ideas for what to do if you encounter challenges when giving the assessment and tips for preparing materials. Typically, you will begin with a word list that is 1 to 2 levels lower than the grade the student is in currently. Pre-primer 1 and pre-primer 2-3 are kindergarten level, and the rest of the lists are numbered with the grade level. The numbering appears only on the examiner's recording sheets. If you have a student that you know is reading below grade level, it's better to err on beginning with a level that may be easy for the student than one that is challenging. If the first list is too difficult, it can cause anxiety from the student. We want them to feel successful on the first list if possible. If you are assessing a student that you know is reading above grade level, begin with the list at their grade level unless you have an idea that they are well above their grade level. If you are assessing a beginning reader and you discover that they cannot read at least half of the pre-primer 1 word list, the easiest list, then you need to choose different assessments. If they can't read the word list, they will also struggle with the passage. Instead of using the QRI, you can assess the following skills in this order: concepts of print, phonemic awareness, knowledge of the letters of the alphabet, uppercase and lowercase, the sounds of the letters, reading CVC words. Avoid calling this a test, which can instill anxiety. Tell the student that they are helping you learn to be a better teacher. If you are their teacher, you can explain that you want to know more about their reading. Watch the video clip to see how you can introduce the assessment and the word list to the student. Hi, I'm so glad you came today. Today I'm going to ask you to do some jobs for me, just doing some reading. And it's just because it's going to help me become a better teacher because I'm learning how to do this little assessment thing. So we're going to do two different things today. The first thing I'm going to have you do is read some words on these lists. And you can see you might know some of those words, and there might be some that you don't know. And if you don't know, you can sound them out if you want to, or just skip them, do the best you can. I can't help you with them. So we're just going to have you do the best you can. And then later, I'm going to have you read some stories, some short stories to me, okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so the first thing I'm going to have you look at the words that are on here. And because I want to write down everything so I can remember what you say, you don't need to go fast because I bet you can read some of those words pretty quickly. So you're just going to take your time and you can use your finger if that helps you to point so you don't lose your spot, whatever works for you. You think you're ready?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you start right there with the first word, and you can use your finger if you want to. Is that easier to keep track? And you can go. After each word list, quickly count the number of errors that were not corrected by the student. The number of errors that puts them into the independent, the instructional, or the frustration level is in the box at the bottom of your scoring sheet. You will finish scoring the sheet after the assessment is completed. Have in your head how many miscues or mistakes the student can make and still be in the instructional stage. If the student initially makes a mistake and then corrects it, it is not counted as an error. Go to the next word list if the student scores in the independent level or the instructional level. Continue giving word lists until the student scores in the frustration range. If the student misses several words at the beginning of that new level, decide whether to stop or to finish the list depending on the student's behaviors. You will hear and see a difference as they begin to struggle. Their body language may change, looking at you for confirmation, sighing, or taking deep breaths. If they seem okay to finish the list, go ahead. If it's obvious that they have reached their limit, just stop mid-list. Just tell them they've done enough and they can have a break. Did you know you would know so many words?
They're getting really hard.
I know, and you're getting them so well. Okay, here we go.
Content, reflected, medicine, biography, artery, capture, vessels, tails, stamped, obstacles, discovers, registration, scarce, primitive, visualize, bulletin, solitary, fluent, pointers, advantage.
And that's all we have to do. Good job. Are you game to try one more? It's the last one. And if it gets too hard, we'll just stop. But let's try it because, wow, you're doing great.
Armament, alliance, enzyme, escalation, non-motile, opulence, armistice, obscurity, immundofancy, whatever that is, that sounds French. Meditated, mandates, infectious, nucleic, chromosome, protestations, reparations, chaffer, mutated, hereditary, heteropodic.
That's a big one.
Topic.
That is the last list. You did a really good job.
Take a break between the lists and the passages.
All right, we're done with that part. So we're going to let you take a little break. And then when we come back, I'm going to have you read 2 short stories to me. I'm going to ask some questions and have you answer some questions after you read, okay? Okay, we'll take a break.
It is advised to wait until another day to do the passage assessment. If that isn't possible, then give a several-minute break.
Begin with a narrative passage. Narrative, look at the highest level word list level where the students scored in the instructional level. Choose a narrative passage at that level. If you feel the student just barely made it above the frustration level, you might choose to do a narrative one level below that. Choose a story you think might be interesting for the student. If the student does well on the comprehension questions, go up one level and repeat the process. If the student is still comprehending well, you probably will want to take another break and wait until another day. Some of the passages at higher levels get fairly long, and with all the components of the passages, students can get fatigued. When the student drops to the frustration level for comprehension, it's time to move to an expository passage. Expository passages are typically more complex for readers with the Tier 2 and Tier 3 words and topics that they may not be familiar with yet. It's good practice to do an expository passage one level below the level of the narrative passage you chose. Some students do better with expository if it's a topic they enjoy and have had some experience with. Print all of the scoring sheets before you begin giving the passage assessment. Passage assessments have several parts: concept questions, reading the passage where you take a running record, retelling, and comprehension questions. Students at a higher level will have longer passages and may tire quickly. It's better to stop after the completion of a passage and continue another time so accurate results are gathered. You want scores reflective of their true abilities, not ones that are skewed because the student was tired and couldn't give their best effort. Most students can do the narrative and expository at the same sitting if they only need to read one of each. Watch the video clip to see how to introduce the concept questions.
All right, we're ready now to do some stories. The first story is about somebody you might have heard about. It's a lady. And before you read the story, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Then I'm going to have you read the story. And then I'm going to say, tell me everything you can remember about the story, and I'll write things down. And then I'll ask you some questions. Okay?
Now watch the next video clip to see how to respond if the student is struggling to answer a concept question. Wait and give them time to formulate a response. Don't help them or tell them if they are right or wrong. Just say, okay, or acknowledge that they did fine and move on to the next question.
Now we're ready to start the stories, and we're going to do two stories. One is like a literature story, or one is like a make-believe story, and then the second one is a nonfiction story. But before we read it, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and the same thing, I'm just going to write down whatever you say, and then we'll have you read the story, okay? See if you've heard of this. What is a mentor? Have you ever heard of a mentor, if somebody's a mentor?
Is it like, I'm trying to think back when my brother talks about mentors. Is it like half horse, half man? Or
Okay. What is determination?
It's when you have a fixed mindset on what you want to do.
Okay. What is a creed? Some big words. Creed. What is a creed?
Something that you need, and you will get really angry if you don't have it.
Okay. What does it mean to motivate someone?
It means to what's the word? I can't think of the word.
It's hard to explain, isn't it? Okay. Any answer, or just skip it?
It's when you encourage someone.
Okay.
Students can read from the QRI manual, but show them what they will read and where to begin. Take a running record on the scoring sheet as they read. Listen to your audio recording later if you weren't able to capture the miscues during the live reading. Encourage, but don't help. At the conclusion of the passage, take the passage away from the student before you ask them to retell.
I'm going to turn back now to the story part so that you can read it. And I'm going to let you just read out of my book. It's one page and a little bit more here, and there's a lot of words. So just take your time, and there we go. And if you want it closer, you can get it closer.
Take the story away so they don't look back for the answers. Students are asked to retell everything they remember. Write notes on a separate sheet of paper and score it later. When they're finished, ask them one more time if they remember anything else. Then stop. Don't coach them for more details.
The first thing I want you to do is to just, you can turn that over, thank you, is to just tell me anything that you can remember from that story. There was a lot of stuff in there, wasn't there? That's okay if it's all. That's okay. I just wanted to give you one more chance in case you want to add anything else.
With rising numbers of students was a testament to his teaching in 1988. The film Stand and Deliver was made to celebrate this amazing teacher. He died in 2010 of cancer at the age 79.
That was a long one, wasn't it? That was a really long one. I've seen that movie. It's kind of a good movie. Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions about it. And let me find them here. Okay, first, I want you to just tell me anything that you can remember, that you remember reading about in that story.
9 kids dropped out of his 14 kid class.
Okay.
There was only 5 left, and what percent was it? I think it was like...
You can guess, or it doesn't matter, okay. Anything else you remember at all from the story?
Almost everyone passed the AMP, was it? AMP exam.
Ask the student each of the comprehension questions. You may repeat or clarify the question, but don't coach them.
Okay, let me ask a few questions and see what you can come up with. What was Amelia Earhart's main goal? What was her main goal?
To fly a plane all the way from the Pacific across the Pacific Ocean.
Okay. What was Amelia Earhart doing in a plane when she first crossed the Atlantic?
She was in the plane, but she wasn't flying.
Okay.
Write down exactly what they say. Use the audio recording later to capture all of their ideas. Take a quick inventory of how they performed on the comprehension questions. Do not do the full scoring while the student waits. Continue to the next level of the narrative passages if the student is still in the independent or instructional levels. Stop if they are near or in the frustration level. Once the student has scored in the frustration stage for either the running record or the comprehension questions on the narrative passage, take a break. Decide the level of expository passage you will begin with. Administer it in the same way as the narrative passage. Continue with the passage at increasing levels until the student scores in the frustration range for comprehension. If the student completely struggles during the reading or the questioning at the new level, discontinue the assessment.
There we go, and it's only a 1-pager. That's better, huh? Whew, I know, that was a long one. That was really a long one. That was a lot, a lot to read. Okay, are we ready? Okay, here we go. All right, the second story I'm going to have you read is a fact-based story, but I'm going to ask you a few questions before we start, okay? Now we're going to do one more story, and this one I think you might like a little bit. And it is, I'm going to do the same thing though. I'm going to ask you a few questions first, and then I'll have you read the story. Is that all right? Okay, here we go.
When the passages are complete, thank the student for the hard work that they did.
And the last one. Why doesn't milk fall off of the cat's tongue?
Because of the bumps that are on its tongue.
You did great. Thank you so much for helping me today. Okay, we're finished.
Score the word lists and passages as soon as you can so you can remember the nuances of what happened. Consult the QRI manual for scoring. With the scoring sheets in front of you, listen to the audio to confirm areas you already marked and complete areas that you missed or didn't understand. Analyzing the data. It's important to analyze the data you collected from the QRI. First, analyze the student's word knowledge. Look at the results from the word lists and the running records you did for the narrative and expository passages. The word lists assess their sight word knowledge and their decoding skills. The passages give insight to strategies they use when reading text. Next, analyze the student's reading comprehension of the narrative and expository passages. Look at the concept questions responses, the prosody scores, the retelling, and the comprehension question results. If the student read multiple passages before they scored in the frustration level, analyze each passage. The final and most important step in analyzing the data is to make decisions for further instruction. Use your findings to create a plan of skills and strategies that the student needs to progress in the reading process. Be sure to plan for word recognition and comprehension. Audio record the sessions. For privacy, you can't do video, but with audio, you can go back and listen if you got behind marking the examiner's sheets. It can also help you to hear more clearly what the response was. In the video clips, you will see that the word lists were copied and attached to paper and laminated, then put on rings. All of the word lists were labeled with the grade level on the back where the student doesn't notice it. This makes it easy to go backward if a list was too difficult or forward to the next list if warranted.
Can I of me the in at with a he go to see do on was she.
You're a good reader. Ready to go on to another one? Okay, you can flip it back and fold it back. And they're going to get harder, and that's okay. They're supposed to. So we'll just do the same thing. Okay, are you ready? You can start when you're ready.
Make, same, like.
Make copies of the scoring sheets for several levels. If you believe the student could begin at a first grade level, have the pre-primer scoring sheets ready in case the student struggles and needs to move down a level or two. After finishing the first list, move to the next list. Continue to more advanced word lists until the student scores in the frustration level or at the lowest end of the instructional level. If your student is reading so fast you can't mark your scoring sheets, stop them and ask them to read more slowly so you can mark everything they say. You can demonstrate this speed for them.
Make, same, like, all, were, my, work, best, play, just, some, they, people, look, to, other, place, where, under, help.
I guess that was easy, right? Okay, turn this one over. And this time I'd like you to go just a little slower because I'm not as fast a writer as you are of a reader. So just go a little bit slower, kind of like this. The cat, so kind of like that, so it gives me time to write. Are you ready? Okay, I get to get my page turned and then we're both ready to go. Okay.
From, need, going, what, special, thing, why, again.
If you are recording audio, you can go back and listen to it to catch any details you missed. Take a break when needed between word lists, after the word lists, or after each passage. Watch for student cues. If they're beginning to struggle with words, they may look to you for confirmation or as if they want help. First, just smile at them. If they ask about a word, just encourage them to do the best they can and go on.
Pilot, dynamic, struggled, symbolized.
If they don't know an answer to a passage question, wait several seconds and then give them the option to answer or not. Sometimes they are just processing an answer.
Why might Jaime have felt discouraged after he moved to California?
He thought the school could have been a lot less.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Did you have anything where you wanted to say? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Or is that it? Got it? Okay, we'll go on to the next one.
In conclusion, the QRI is used to gather data about individual students' sight word and decoding strengths when reading words in isolation and in text. It also yields information about the student's comprehension abilities in reading narrative and expository text. You can use the results of the inventory to group students with similar reading levels and to create a plan for reinforcing strengths and teaching to areas that need growth. As you administer the QRI repeatedly, you will gain confidence in identifying the skills and strategies used by students and the next steps for instruction.